After the age of 60, there is something that catches many people completely off guard. Sometimes the thing placing the greatest strain on your kidneys is not what you would expect. It is not the fast food. It is not the soda. It is not the obvious things everyone warns you about. Sometimes it is the vegetables sitting on your kitchen counter right now, the ones you have been eating with complete confidence. A handful of spinach blended into your morning smoothie because someone told you it was good for you. A plate of potatoes at dinner because they felt wholesome and familiar. A glass of beet juice because you read somewhere that it supports blood pressure. A bowl of pasta covered in rich tomato sauce because you made it yourself at home. Those leafy greens everyone online is calling superfoods. They all sound like the right choices. They look like health on a plate. But if your doctor has ever mentioned watching your kidney function, monitoring your potassium levels, being cautious about kidney stones, or keeping an eye on lab numbers that have drifted away from where they should be, then some of these everyday vegetables may deserve a much closer look than you have been giving them. Because when the kidneys are already carrying extra burden, certain vegetables can add quietly to that burden day after day, meal after meal, without ever announcing what they are doing. And the part that makes this so difficult to catch is that your kidneys rarely raise a loud alarm in the early stages. What you notice instead is that you feel a little more tired than you used to. Your feet or ankles carry a slight puffiness by evening. Your body feels heavier in a way that is hard to name. And you tell yourself what so many people tell themselves: this is just what getting older feels like. But sometimes it is not simply aging. Sometimes it is your kidneys quietly asking for a little more consideration. My name is Dr. James Walker, and today I want to give you something practical and genuinely useful. I'm going to walk you through 5 vegetables that may be silently placing extra stress on kidneys that are already working harder than they used to. And then I am going to show you 4 gentler alternatives, vegetables that can make your meals feel satisfying and nourishing without adding burden to the very organs that filter everything you consume. Not to frighten you away from vegetables, but to help you choose them more wisely than you have been taught to before now. Let us begin with the first one, and this is the one that surprises people the most because it sits at the very center of what our culture has decided is healthy eating. Spinach. For decades, spinach has been held up as almost the definition of a nutritious vegetable. It appears in every green smoothie recipe. It fills the salads of people who describe themselves as eating clean. It shows up in detox programs and wellness videos and healthy eating guides aimed at older adults. And the reasoning seems sound on the surface. More leafy greens must mean better health. But when the kidneys are already under stress, that logic does not hold as simply as it seems. Spinach contains high levels of oxalates. Oxalates are naturally occurring compounds found in many plants, and in a body with fully functioning kidneys, they are processed and eliminated without much difficulty. But when oxalate levels in the body become elevated, they can bind with calcium and form crystals that accumulate in the kidneys. Think of it this way. Imagine your kidneys as a finely constructed water filtration system that has been running reliably for many years. Oxalates are like fine grit being introduced into that filter continuously. A small amount passes through without causing lasting trouble. But when the same filter receives that grit repeatedly, in quantities larger than it was designed to handle, the system begins to struggle in ways that are slow to appear and difficult to reverse. The real concern is not the person who adds a few spinach leaves to a salad occasionally. The concern is the person who fills a blender with a large double handful of raw spinach every single morning and drinks it down in 3 minutes because they believe they are doing something excellent for their health. And here is a detail worth sitting with. When you eat a bowl of leafy greens, the physical experience of chewing and the volume of food on your plate creates a natural limit on how much you consume. When those same greens are blended into a smoothie, you may consume 2, 3, or even 4 times the quantity in a single sitting without feeling like you have eaten much at all. For someone with fully healthy kidneys, this may present minimal risk. For someone whose kidney function has declined, whose doctor has mentioned stones or elevated creatinine or potassium concerns, that concentrated daily oxalate load is something worth reconsidering carefully. This is not about eliminating spinach from your life. It is about understanding that even genuinely nutritious foods require the right context, the right quantity, and the right health condition to be truly beneficial for your specific body. If leafy greens are important to you, speak with your doctor or a renal dietitian about which varieties are the better choices for your current kidney health. The second vegetable is one so ordinary, so familiar, so deeply embedded in daily meals across every culture that almost nobody thinks to question it in the context of kidney health. Potatoes. Mashed at Sunday dinner, baked alongside a weeknight meal, roasted for gatherings, sweet potatoes baked and presented as the healthier alternative. These are comfort foods in the truest sense. And for people with kidney concerns, they bring with them something that deserves serious attention: potassium. Potassium is an essential mineral. Your body requires it for muscle function, for nerve signaling, for maintaining the rhythm of the heart. When the kidneys are working well, they regulate potassium levels in the blood with remarkable efficiency, removing what the body does not need and retaining what it does. But when kidney function has declined, that regulatory ability weakens. The kidneys can no longer filter excess potassium as effectively as they once could. And when potassium accumulates in the bloodstream beyond safe levels, the consequences involve the heart directly. Elevated blood potassium can disrupt the electrical signals that govern the heart's rhythm in ways that are genuinely dangerous. A potato sitting on your plate looks simple and harmless, but for a body whose kidneys are no longer filtering with full efficiency, that potato represents a potassium load arriving at an organ that may not have the capacity to manage it comfortably. Think of it this way. Your kidneys are like a gatekeeper who has been managing a busy entrance for many decades. In younger years, that gatekeeper moved quickly, made decisions fast, and handled heavy traffic without falling behind. As the years have passed, the gatekeeper moves more deliberately. When too much arrives at once, the queue builds. What was once managed easily now requires more effort and more time. There is a preparation method that renal dietitians sometimes discuss in this context. Peeling and cutting potatoes into small pieces, soaking them in water for several hours, then boiling them in fresh water rather than the soaking water. This process, called leaching, can reduce some of the potassium content. But I want to be direct with you about what this means and what it does not mean. Leaching reduces potassium. It does not eliminate it. A leached potato is not a food you can eat in unlimited quantities simply because a preparation step was taken. Portion size remains the single most important variable. A modest, measured serving prepared carefully is a different matter entirely from a generous plate eaten without thought because the potatoes were boiled. If your doctor has advised you to monitor potassium intake, treat potatoes not as a casual everyday food, but as something that requires deliberate portioning and occasional rather than daily consumption. The third vegetable, or more accurately the way this vegetable is most commonly consumed, has been celebrated online and in wellness communities with enormous enthusiasm over recent years: beets and beet juice. In health content across every platform, beets are presented as a near miraculous vegetable, beneficial for blood pressure, supportive of circulation, energizing before physical activity, positive for heart health, and there is genuine research supporting some of these claims. The issue is not with the beet as a vegetable. The issue is with the gap between eating beets and drinking beet juice, a gap that has significant implications for kidneys that are already under stress. When you eat whole beets as part of a meal, you chew. The physical act of eating imposes a natural limit on quantity. You feel the volume of food. The digestive process unfolds gradually. You are unlikely to consume an excessive amount simply because it takes time and physical effort. When those same beets are pressed into juice, the concentrated liquid contains a far greater quantity of everything the beet contains, potassium and oxalates included, delivered to the body rapidly, without the moderating effect of fiber, without the slowing influence of chewing and digestion. Consider the difference between eating a single orange and drinking a glass of juice that required 4 oranges to produce. The body receives a fundamentally different experience from each, even though both came from the same fruit. The concentrated version arrives faster, in greater quantity, and without the buffering that whole food consumption provides. Beets contain both potassium and oxalates. For someone with a history of kidney stones, the oxalate content is relevant. For someone whose kidney function has declined and whose potassium management is compromised, the potassium content matters. And the form in which beets are consumed, juice versus whole food, determines how concentrated and how rapidly delivered that content is. If you have been drinking beet juice regularly because something online told you it was the right thing to do for your health, I am not asking you to feel that you made a foolish decision. I am asking you to bring that habit into a conversation with your physician, particularly if they have ever mentioned kidney function, stone history, or potassium levels. Natural and healthy are not always the same thing for every person in every health context. What your kidneys need is not the healthiest food in the abstract. It is the food that is right for your specific body in its current condition. The fourth entry is not a vegetable you would immediately think of as a problem, which is precisely what makes it worth discussing with some care. Concentrated tomato products. And I want to be specific here because there is an important distinction worth drawing. A few slices of fresh tomato in a salad is a very different conversation from the foods I am referring to. What deserves attention for people with kidney concerns is tomato sauce, tomato paste, tomato juice, ketchup used in significant quantities, and any dish built around a large volume of cooked, concentrated tomato. These products represent something meaningfully different from fresh tomato, and the difference lies in what happens to potassium content when tomatoes are cooked down and concentrated. A fresh tomato contains a relatively modest amount of potassium in a reasonable serving. But when tomatoes are cooked slowly and reduced into a sauce or paste, the water evaporates while the minerals remain. The potassium that was distributed across a larger volume of fresh tomato becomes concentrated into a smaller volume of cooked product. A generous bowl of pasta covered in rich tomato sauce, a thick tomato-based soup, a recipe built on a large can of tomato paste, these represent a potassium load that arrives in a form that is deceptively easy to underestimate. The error many older adults make is associating homemade cooking with automatic safety. And in many ways, cooking at home is genuinely better. But the ingredients you cook with determine what you are delivering to your body, regardless of whether the meal was prepared in your own kitchen or came from a restaurant. High potassium ingredients used in large quantities produce the same effect on your kidneys whether they were prepared with love at home or not. The practical adjustment here does not require abandoning flavor or joy in cooking. It requires moderation in tomato-based products specifically, and building flavor through means that do not add mineral burden. Fresh garlic, dried herbs like oregano and basil, black pepper. These can make a meal smell and taste deeply satisfying without placing additional demands on kidneys that are already working harder than they used to. The fifth vegetable on this list is one that appears regularly on lists of foods that health-conscious people are encouraged to eat more of. It looks vibrant, natural, and clearly beneficial, which makes it one of the more important ones to understand correctly. Swiss chard. The deep green leaves and brightly colored stems of Swiss chard make it visually appealing, and it is frequently presented as a nutritional powerhouse. For individuals with fully healthy kidneys, this reputation is reasonably earned. But for someone managing kidney disease, elevated potassium, or a history of kidney stones, Swiss chard presents a particular combination of concerns that distinguishes it from many other vegetables. Swiss chard contains both significant potassium and significant oxalates. That combination means it can create two separate forms of pressure on kidneys that are already compromised simultaneously. The potassium side of the equation relates to the heart rhythm concerns we discussed in the context of potatoes. The oxalate side relates to the stone formation and filtration burden we discussed in the context of spinach. When a food brings both of these concerns together in meaningful quantities, its effect on a struggling kidney is more layered than either concern would be alone. Think of an older adult carrying two heavy bags on a long walk, one in each hand. One bag alone is manageable, even if tiring. Two bags at the same time doubles the physical demand and accelerates fatigue in ways that compound rather than simply add. That is the nature of Swiss chard for someone whose kidneys are no longer operating at full capacity. It does not look like a problem. It does not feel like a problem while you are eating it. But the cumulative effect of consuming it regularly, when your kidneys are already burdened, can be significant over time. And this brings us to the most important lesson underlying all 5 of these vegetables. The issue is never that vegetables are bad. The issue is that the body's capacity to process certain compounds changes as we age and as kidney function changes with it. The vegetables themselves have not become harmful. What has changed is the internal environment they are entering. After 60, particularly for anyone managing kidney disease, elevated blood pressure, diabetes, or a history of kidney stones, eating cannot simply follow the general guidelines that worked well at 35 or 40. It needs to reflect the specific condition of your specific body right now. Your kidneys are like a car that has logged many decades of reliable service. That car can still take you where you need to go. It is still valuable. It is still worth caring for. But it requires a different kind of attention than a newer vehicle. You would not expect the same fuel, the same maintenance intervals, the same driving demands to apply equally. Your kidneys deserve that same thoughtfulness. Now let us move to the part of this conversation that I find most important to share, because understanding what to be cautious about is only half of what you need. You also need to know what to eat instead. And the good news is that the kidney-friendlier alternatives are not difficult, expensive, or joyless. They are practical, accessible, and genuinely satisfying. The first, gentler choice is cauliflower. Cauliflower does not carry the visual drama of brightly colored vegetables, and it does not appear in wellness marketing with particular enthusiasm. But for someone who needs to eat in a way that is kinder to their kidneys, cauliflower is an exceptionally intelligent choice. It is generally much lower in potassium than starchy vegetables like potatoes. It is versatile in ways that make it easy to incorporate into familiar meal patterns. And for people who love the comfort of certain foods they have been told to limit, cauliflower offers practical substitutions that preserve the feeling of those meals without the mineral burden. Mashed cauliflower in place of mashed potatoes is one of the most commonly used examples. Steam or boil it until fully tender, then mash it with a small amount of olive oil, some garlic, black pepper, and whatever herbs fit your eating plan. The texture is soft and warm and comforting in a way that feels familiar rather than like a compromise. You are not losing a meal you love, you are finding a version of it that asks less of your kidneys. Cauliflower works equally well roasted until the edges caramelize, added to a light soup, steamed simply as a side dish, or incorporated into a stir-fry. It is not an exotic ingredient. It is not expensive or difficult to find. It is simply a quieter, steadier, more forgiving choice for a body that needs meals which nourish without overloading. The second, gentler choice is red bell peppers. Red bell peppers bring something to the plate that matters deeply for older adults who have been told to reduce salt and have consequently found their meals less enjoyable. They bring color, natural sweetness, and a satisfying crunch that adds genuine sensory pleasure to food without requiring added sodium or heavy sauces. One of the quiet difficulties of eating for kidney health is the risk of meals becoming so bland and restricted that the pleasure of eating disappears entirely. When food loses its appeal, people skip meals. When meals are consistently skipped or eaten without appetite, nutritional status declines, physical strength weakens, and managing overall health becomes harder. Red bell peppers are genuinely helpful in this regard because they make the plate look inviting. They add flavor that does not come from salt. They make food feel like something worth sitting down to enjoy rather than a medical obligation. Sliced and eaten alongside a meal, lightly roasted with a drizzle of olive oil, added to a simple stir-fry with garlic, or tossed into a salad for color and crunch, red bell peppers integrate easily into almost any eating pattern. They also contain natural antioxidant compounds that support the health of blood vessels, which matters for kidney health specifically because the kidneys are filled with an intricate network of tiny vessels. Supporting vascular health provides a foundation that benefits kidney function over time. The third gentler choice is garlic. Garlic is humble in appearance and modest in cost. It does not require a specialty store. It does not arrive in capsule form or as an expensive powder. It is simply one of the most useful ingredients any older adult managing kidney health can keep in their kitchen. And the primary reason is this: it gives food deep, satisfying flavor without adding potassium or sodium burden. When people are advised to reduce their salt intake for kidney or blood pressure reasons, the immediate challenge is that food suddenly tastes flat and unsatisfying. Meals that once brought comfort begin to feel like obligation. Garlic addresses that problem directly. A small amount of garlic gently cooked in olive oil transforms the aroma of a meal before it is even plated. Minced garlic stirred into steamed vegetables or added to soup creates richness and depth. Roasted garlic spread lightly onto a small piece of bread provides warmth and satisfaction. The meal still feels like a real meal. It still smells inviting. It still tastes like something worth sitting down for. One small practical note. After chopping or crushing garlic, allowing it to rest for a few minutes before applying heat gives the natural beneficial compounds within it time to fully develop. If you take blood thinners, are managing digestive sensitivities, or are preparing for any kind of medical procedure, discuss the quantity of garlic in your diet with your physician before increasing it significantly. As with everything in this conversation, what is genuinely good for one person may need to be adjusted for another. The fourth gentler choice is cabbage. Cabbage is perhaps the least celebrated vegetable in modern health culture. It sits quietly in the produce section without attracting much attention. It does not appear in dramatic transformation stories or popular detox programs. But for an older adult who needs to add more vegetables to their daily meals without relying heavily on high potassium or high oxalate choices, cabbage offers something genuinely practical. It is inexpensive and available everywhere. It is flexible enough to work in soups, light stir-fries, simple slaws, steamed side dishes, or as a wrap for other ingredients. It adds volume and substance to meals in a way that feels satisfying without contributing meaningfully to the mineral loads that compromise kidney function. And because it belongs to the cruciferous vegetable family, it contains natural plant compounds that have been studied in relation to how the body manages oxidative stress and cellular inflammation, two processes deeply connected to the way aging affects organ function over time. Think of cabbage the way you might think of a deeply reliable, unpretentious friend. Not dramatic, not making promises it cannot keep, simply present, useful, consistent, and genuinely helpful in ways that become more apparent the more regularly you rely on it. By now, the pattern in all of this should be becoming clear. Taking better care of your kidneys after 60 does not mean approaching food with fear or surrendering every meal you have ever enjoyed. It means developing a more precise and honest understanding of which foods serve your body in its current condition and which ones, despite appearing healthy in a general sense, may be asking more of your kidneys than they can comfortably give. A vegetable that is genuinely beneficial for someone with fully functioning kidneys may need to be limited for someone whose kidney function has declined. A food that is perfectly fine eaten whole may become a different matter entirely when it is juiced, blended, or concentrated into a form the body absorbs more rapidly and in greater quantity. And a meal prepared at home with care and intention can still place unnecessary burden on compromised kidneys if the underlying ingredients are not well chosen. So from today forward, I want to invite you to shift the question you ask when you look at your plate. Instead of asking simply whether something is healthy, ask whether it is right for your kidneys in their current condition. If your doctor has mentioned kidney stones, ask about oxalate content. If elevated potassium has come up in your lab results, pay attention to the potassium levels in the vegetables you eat most frequently. If you have chronic kidney disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, or take medications that affect kidney function, have an honest conversation with your physician or a renal dietitian before making significant changes to your eating habits based on general wellness advice that was not written with your specific situation in mind. Your kidneys do not need dramatic interventions or expensive supplements or unfamiliar superfoods. They need the accumulated effect of thoughtful daily choices. A smaller portion of potato instead of a full plate. Cauliflower prepared in a way that feels genuinely satisfying. Garlic and herbs building flavor where salt used to. A glass of water instead of beet juice. Cabbage in the soup instead of Swiss chard. Small choices, made consistently, across many meals, over many weeks. That is what gives your kidneys room to function with less strain. And that reduction in daily strain is not a small thing. It is the difference between a body that is continuously working at the edge of its capacity and one that has a little space to breathe. To bring everything together simply and clearly, the 5 vegetables that deserve careful consideration for anyone managing kidney health after 60 are spinach in large quantities, especially blended, potatoes and sweet potatoes in generous portions, beet juice in concentrated daily amounts, tomato products that have been cooked down and concentrated, and Swiss chard, which combines both potassium and oxalate concerns. And the 4 gentler alternatives worth building more of your meals around are cauliflower as a satisfying lower potassium foundation food, red bell peppers for flavor and color without mineral burden, garlic for richness and depth without added sodium, and cabbage for versatile everyday vegetable volume. Begin wherever feels most accessible. The next time you prepare dinner, pause for just a moment before you serve yourself and ask one additional question beyond whether the meal looks nutritious. Ask whether it is gentle on your kidneys. That single question, practiced consistently, has the potential to meaningfully change the daily experience of your body over time. Your kidneys have been filtering quietly and faithfully for your entire life. They do not need perfection from you now. They need awareness. They need a little more consideration than the general wellness advice you find online was designed to offer. And they need the kind of thoughtful, meal-by-meal attention that reflects the real condition of your body at this stage of life. If this conversation has given you something genuinely useful today, I would be grateful if you shared it with someone in your life who is also navigating food choices with kidney health in mind. And if you have not already subscribed to this channel, please do. There is more practical, clear, and honestly presented nutrition guidance for life after 60 on the way. Before we close, I want to leave you with something simple. Getting older does not mean giving your health over to decline without question. Your body is still listening to every choice you make. Every meal that asks a little less of your kidneys is a quiet act of care for an organ that has never stopped working on your behalf. I am Dr. James Walker. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Take a slow breath, make your next meal a thoughtful one, and I will see you in the next video.